the Breaking Silences Advocacy Committee is still meeting. What issues are you advocating for now?
So we are still talking about the caregiver crisis, but we have, because some of the issues are so big, and there's only maybe 20 people that go from different committees, sit on different committees. We decided it would probably be more productive for all of our groups' times if the groups identified different things that they want to focus on, as opposed to everybody trying to do the same issues. So we have said that since the Olmsted Task Force and the Direct Care Workforce Crisis Group were really spearheading the caregiver crisis issue, that Breaking Silences would support them and do whatever we could to help them, but we would focus on other issues. So we have now been focusing, probably since the middle of last year, we started with accommodations for open and public meetings, mostly virtually, but we've talked about once the in-person world comes back into play, what will that look like again? And we've worked with department directors to bring awareness about the issue. We've reached out to the ADA coordinators or individuals who take on that role, whether or not that's their title in the departments. And most recently, we've done outreach to the governor's office, who is now bringing together a meeting with all the departments and Breaking Silences and the Olmsted Task Force about these issues to see if we can get some of the suggestions we've made to implement it, and to make sure that they know that when they're making decisions, they need to include us in the discussions, not just tell us after the fact what the decisions are, but actually have conversations with us about what is the most needed areas of change and how do we make those changes for the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing about us without us.
Yep.
As you said earlier, disabled people are a part of every group, so we should be at all the tables.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like being a disabled woman is an important part of your life. So I wanted to ask you, how has your disability made you feel empowered, proud, or shaped your identity?
Wow. That's such a big question. I think that I really understood what disability pride was when I saw all the folks I saw protesting for something. I mean, your sense of belonging to that community was so immense, but the fact that you were just so proud to be part of a community that said, you know what, you're not going to do that to me. I'm not going to let you do that to me. I have rights. I'm a person, and, I'm going to stand up for my rights. To see that many people do that and be just that effective, that was my changing point. That's when I understood about what it means to be proud of being disabled. And I know people at that point in the 90s, over the years, we've had language change so much. So at that time, it was person with a disability. That was the new term. Individual with a disability, because you had to put the person first. when I found my disability pride, I said, I'm a disabled woman. My disability is what identifies me. And I am not apologizing for that. That I am proud of that. I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of the community, that I'm part of a community that fights for their rights, that fights for everyone's rights, not just their own. And so that, I think, was really eye-opening. Part of what I experienced with ADAPT, I think, too, was when I got arrested, because I never thought it would happen. Like, I was in my 20s. So I was pretty just, I didn't care. I knew all the answers to everything, and you couldn't tell me anything any different. And so we go to a protest in Atlanta, Georgia, and it was the night of the Democratic election. I'm sorry, the presidential election. We were at the Democratic headquarters, and it was when Bill Clinton got reelected, but of course we didn't know that yet. So ADAPT doesn't take sides politically. So we protest the Republicans, we protest the Democrats. It doesn't matter what your party affiliation is. They both have policies that aren't the greatest for the disability community. So we were at the Democratic headquarters, and I was outside. There were over 500 of us, and we had to get in the building and upstairs to where the Democratic offices were that we were going to be protesting at. And it took, I think, 3 minutes for 500 people to get in that building. That's how planned ADAPT has their actions. But my partner and I, we were both considered group leaders. They called them color leaders because every group had a color. And typically the group leaders don't get arrested. You identify people in your group who are comfortable in doing that. But we were told to get inside, and the leader of ADAPT at that time, it was Mike Auberger. He said to me, go upstairs and block the elevator, because I just need one of you to block the elevator. I'm like, okay, I'm on it. So I get upstairs. I was so excited. I'm like, yay, I'm finally getting to do something. It was really boring being a color leader. You didn't get to have a lot of activity. So we go upstairs. I get out of the elevator, and I turn my wheelchair, and there's a cop right there. And he looks at me and he says, you need to move. And I'm like, I'm not moving. And he says, no, I said, you need to move. Otherwise, I'm going to arrest you. And I turned my chair and parked, and Alan was with me. And the cop was like, well, she needs to move. And he said, well, she's going to do what she wants. You just talk to her. And the cop looked at me again and said, move or you're getting arrested. And I said, I guess I'm getting arrested. So they told us to go back down the elevator and wait outside in this one small area that they were holding everybody. And he had paperwork, and he laid it up on my hip. And we get on the elevator, and he closes the door, and he wasn't with us. And I look at Alan, that's my partner, and I was like, well, what do we do now? We just gave the paperwork, and Alan's like, I don't really think he wants to go through with this. I'm like, oh, no. If they're going to arrest me, then we're going to do this. So I get off the elevator, and there's a cop there, and I'm like, so the officer upstairs set me down with this paperwork. What do I do now? And the cop like looked at me and Alan like, really? I mean, like, is she that dumb? Like, okay, go over there and wait for the bus. And I'm like, okay. So we go to this little pen area where they had us all herded in like cattle, to wait for the city bus to take us to jail. Well, coming from Dayton, I'm like, well, it's not gonna happen. I can't get on their bus, right? I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. I didn't realize how massive the bus was and how big the lift was. Oh, I got in there very easily with a bunch of other people who were arrested. So we got taken to the jail and we were held for about 2 hours because it was the middle of the night. And they had to wake up the judge to come to like do all of our read us our rights and tell us what we were charged with. And the nurse in the jail, she made sure that I was the first one to go before the judge because they knew I was a liability. If anything happened under their care, they were responsible. And they didn't know the first thing about doing anything for someone with a ventilator. So I got released, and I don't know, that experience and the times with ADAPT, that was probably the best disability awakening in my heart. And it just gave me my pride of who I was and what my community was about. It was the best ever.
That's amazing. I love that you went from like, I am not moving to if you're gonna arrest me, arrest me. Committed either way. That's perfect.
Yep.
I love that.
Till I got there and went, oh, wow, this is really happening. Okay, now what?
Yeah. That's an awesome story. I love that. Well, we just have one final question of closing, and that is just to see if you have any advice or calls to action even for other disabled advocates.
Well, never say that you can't or you won't. I hate when people are like, I can't do that. That's never going to happen. That's never going to change. I think that you need to believe in who you are, to believe that you deserve everything that everybody else has, that you can do it. You know, I think the biggest part of all of us, whether you have a disability or not, is believing that you can or cannot do something, because either way, you're right. You know, so believe that you can do it and be part of the change. Don't be afraid to speak up. I don't like when people, I mean, I know that you've got to play a game sometime and you've got to be nice and you've got to work with people, but know when it's time to just butt your head against the system and say, I'm not taking this anymore. You're not treating me this way. This is not okay. I think it's important. I think the person who stood up for me when I was doing my fight after college, I was facing going into a nursing home because I decided that I wanted to stay in Ohio. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, but I wanted to become a resident of Ohio and work here. I had a job offer, and I thought, I'm a new college graduate. I should be able to choose what I want to do, where I want to live. And the state, Ohio, they said if I decided to stay here, that they would put me in a nursing home because there were no programs that would accommodate the hours and level of care that I needed to be in the community. And so I was doing my practicum at the center, the access center where I work. And so my partner, Alan, he was working there, and one of the founders of our center, Roland Sykes, he was there, and Roland was an amazing mentor to me. And he taught me like how to connect with people virtually, because he had developed the first completely accessible internet database for people. It was just a bulletin board system, but it connected to everybody all over. And so I connected with people to other states and learned about what they were doing. But he taught me and my partner too that you have to essentially do your homework and research everything. And when you're going into something big, like going against the state about an issue, he would tell us learn their regulations and their policies and know them better than they know their own policies. And so when we went to my hearing, and they were spouting out why they couldn't put me on their Medicaid program, because it would be an issue of health and safety, because I needed 24-hour coverage, and I only had 22 hours covered. So 2 hours were uncovered. Even though I had friends that would do it, it wasn't okay. Well, Roland knew their policy, and he listened and listened. So we were here in, the local area at the Job and Family Center, and the officials at Medicaid were on the telephone in Columbus telling me why I couldn't stay in Ohio, why they wouldn't allow me to be on their program. And he just listened. And then when they were finished, he said, "Are you done?" And they said, "Well, yeah." And he said, "Okay, well, right here under regulation, blah, 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 blah. It says," and I quote, and he rattled off the entire regulation of why they couldn't deny me. And it was dead silence. Everybody in the room was quiet. Everybody on the phone was quiet. And he just sat there and he said, "Now you tell me that you can legally deny her this program that she has already proven to you that she will be safe and she can maintain her health. You go ahead and tell me how you can deny her." And they couldn't, they approved it. So I suggest to anybody, I don't care how tired you are, I don't care how frustrated you are, do your homework, know the policies, know the regulations, research, research, research. Never stop, because you have to know what you're fighting for better than the people you're fighting against. That's the only way you win.
That's really incredible advice, and I wish that I was a fly on the wall in the room for that story. That sounds really. Honestly, I wish I was in the room of the people listening to him say that, just to see their faces.
I wish we had a virtual
world
back then.
That's really valid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Maria. You are our first guest, and it has been an honor having you share your stories and knowledge with us. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And I think you're doing a great job. So I am so excited that you are with Disability Rights Ohio.
Thank you.